Hello everyone. Today we are going to study chapter number 4, Administration and Society during the Delhi Sultanate. In this chapter we will read about the administration system and society that exists during the Delhi Sultanate. So firstly we are going to study about administration during Iltutmish region. In his region, how he administrated the whole region, what were the policies which he had made. So we have already read in the last chapter that Iltutmish developed a land revenue system in which the entire Sultanate was divided into smaller regions called iktas. These iktas were given to Turkish nobles. Those were known as iktadars. The iktadar were responsible for maintaining law and order in the iktas, means in their particular region, as well as for collecting revenue. They have to collect tax from the land which were allotted to them. They also led military campaigns on behalf of the Sultan, and they also provided him with soldiers in times of war and any revolt. Thus, the Iqtadars were a part of administrative system as well as the military organization of the Sultanate. Means administration system and in military they have a different part. The revenue collected by the Iqtadar were used to maintain the army. The tax which they collect, which was collected by Iqtadars, that money of the tax was used to maintain army, used to give them weapons, give them salaries and the required things, and to earn a salary for themselves. And the Iqtadars also use that money as their own salary in the lieu of the services rendered to the Sultan by them. Unlike the feudal knights in Europe, the Iqtadars were not the owners of the land. They could be transferred from one Iqta to another. The land which was allotted to the Iqtadars, that land was not them. They are not the owners of that land. The Sultan appointed accountants to audit the revenue collected by the Iqtadars, and the accountants were also appointed so that they can check the revenue which was collected by Iqtadars. The Iqtadars were punished if they were caught spinning off the revenue, if they are doing if they are corrupted, if they are doing and misusing that money, then they were also given punishment. Moreover, the Iqtas could also be taken away from them by the Sultan if they were found taking advantage of their powers. And the villages under the Delhi Sultanate were governed by village headman, that was also known as Muqtadam, who was the landowner of big tracts of land. And landowners with small holdings were called khuds. There were two landowners. Those who were having a large land, they were known as Muqtadam, and the other one, those who have small piece of land, they were known as khuds. These landowners paid taxes to Iqtadars or Muktis for the land which they are owned. And sometimes the khuds misused their position and forced the peasants, forced the farmers to pay more revenue or the land revenue or as their part which they have to pay. But they took advantage of this, they took more revenue from them. So there were also Hindu landlords, they were known as Riyas, who continued to hold their position for a long time, though their status and position increased and decreased during the region of the Delhi Sultanate and during sultans. The next one is taxation system. The main source of income was land revenue, and the entire land of the Sultanate was divided into four kinds. Land given to Iktas, the revenue which was collected by Iktadars, and the land given to Hindu landlords, means the land which were given to Riyas. Next is land under direct control of Sultan, the part of land which Sultan is holding. He is collecting the revenue himself. And last one is land given to Muslim scholars. Some part of land was given to Muslim scholars as well. And the tax were collected from the owners of these types of lands. All the owners of the land, they have to collect the taxes and they have to give that tax to Sultan. There were two categories of taxes, religious taxes and secular taxes. Iltutmish also introduced coinage system during his rule, and he was also known as the first who minted a coin. The coin in his region, the first coin was minted by a Muslim ruler and in the name of a god. He introduced two coins, silver tankas and the copper jitas. Tankas means a currency that was used during Delhi Sultanate, that during that period, and jitas means copper coins, which became the model of the coinage by the further coming Delhi Sultans. Next is Bandagans. Bandagans were mostly slaves of noble Turkish origin, and they were very loyal to their masters. They were the slaves. They obey their master. They were given special training to hold important political offices in the Sultanate, and they were usually appointed as governors of the provinces, of the regions. Iltutmish appointed Chahalgani, means council of 40 nobles who were depend on their masters. He has appointed 40 nobles, and they all were depend on their masters, and they were very loyal. Since the Sultan relied on them, it reduced the possibility of revolt by them. Earlier, they were relied on Sultan, and that time there were no revolt. After Iltutmish, the successors of sultans of Delhi Sultanate followed the system of Chahargani by making certain changes. So at that time, the at that time there were some revolts or some issues in between those 40 nobles. Next is administration during Balban's region. Balban was one of the powerful sultans of the slave dynasty, but he didn't like the power of Chahalganis, those 40 nobles. So he decided to finish their power because he was aware about the fact that he will not be able to the powerful sultan till then these all 40 nobles were in the power or in the position. So he started promotion of junior officials to high positions of power. So and he started to put them on an equal level as the 40 nobles were there. It was just to humiliate them, just to insult them, all of the Chahalgani nobles. And Babban further introduced few rules in his court. He gave up all the pleasures and wine, and he insisted that all the courtiers, those who were present in his court, they all have to follow the same rules. He always wore turban in the court. He introduced sijda, or prostration means they all have to lay flat on the ground and in front of the sultan, and poyabs means kissing the feet of the sultan. This was as a form of a style of greeting in his court. These all practices which he has started, the main motive for these practices was he want to raise the position of sultan as all powerful authority, and he wanted that all should obey the rules and the regulations and the practices that which sultan has made. And this idea of salation was not liked by many nobles. The idea of greeting, the style of greeting which he introduced, it was not liked by many nobles. In order to strengthen his administration, he further got built new fortresses, towns, so that he can promote regional trade as well. Next is administration during Alauddin Khalji's region. First is military reforms, the changes which he introduced in military. During the region of Alauddin Khalji, the Delhi Sultanate had covered almost entire India. Only the states of south were left. So in order to maintain and to govern the large empire, Alauddin Khalji introduced many military and reforms. So, to protect his frontiers, he raised a huge army and paid salaries in currency to the soldiers. He constructed new forts and repaired old forts that were along the frontiers. And he also built Siri Fort in Delhi, that is very famous. He didn't allow his nobles to keep personal armies, and these nobles were also not allowed to make changes in the land revenue system. Next is land revenue reforms, the changes which he introduced in land revenue system. The total land was measured and then the share of the state was fixed. Second is officials were appointed to collect land revenue for the state. And there were three kinds of taxes: cultivation called kharaj on cattle grazing pastures or charai, and taxes on houses or gharai. He has started on taxes on cultivation, on cattle grazing, and on houses. The tax on cultivation was raised to 1 upon 2 of the total produce, and farmers had to pay this tax directly to the treasury of the Sultan. And the next one is all other lands were confiscated and made taxable under the central regime of the Sultanate. A strong spy system was also introduced and spies were appointed everywhere so that they can give every minute information to the Sultan about the revolts and about the problems which can be happened during his region by the other sultans or the other empires. The next one is economic reforms. Apart from administration reforms, Alauddin also introduced some economic changes. He has taken some steps to improve economic condition, to collect more revenue from his army, for his army. Prices of certain products like food, grains, clothes, cattle, and general merchandise were fixed. He has fixed all the prices of all these things. Hoarding of any goods were punishable. Nobody can advertise about their product. Grains were sorted in government granaries to be used during times of crisis. So he has started storing some grains in famine or in drought. Those grains which were stored in government places, granaries, he can use and he can give to public also. The prices once fixed could not be changed even during crises such as famine or war. Strict rationing was practiced during famine. A market superintendent called Sahana Mandi was appointed to keep a check on market prices and ensure regular flow of grains into the market and the granary. So he has appointed an official. He can give him the information about all the things which were happening in the market. Next is administration during Muhammad bin Tughlaq's region. First one is the currency experiment. Muhammad bin Tughlaq was a very good administrator and he wanted to bring some changes in his administration. So he introduced a new gold coin called dinar. This was done from the treasury which he was collected from the Devagiri. He decided that copper coins were to be used as token money and they would have equal value to silver and gold coins. Hence, all the transactions could be done through copper coins. But the result of this experiment was very different and very bad. As a result of this announcement, many people started making fake copper coins, and there was no difference between the original and the fake copper coin. The people used the copper coins and they took gold and silver coins and they become rich, and the government treasury was filled with the copper coins, and most of these copper coins were fake. Hence the value of the currency fell, and at last the Sultan had to repel the order to save the government treasury, means he has cancelled all these orders because he has to save his own treasury, his own money, the government money. Next is shifting of capital. Another important experiment made by Muhammad bin Tughlaq was shifting of his capital from Delhi to Devagiri in the south. Devagiri, which he renamed Daulatabad. It was situated in the south, and it was far away from Delhi, Telangana and other important places of the Sultanate. So Muhammad bin Tughlaq ordered all the residents of Delhi to move to Daulatabad, and leaving all his town of Delhi, that the whole precious town of Delhi. The residents of Delhi were not in the favor to move from their city, but Sultan forced them to leave the city and to move to Daulatabad. But he was very kind to the migrants, and he helped them and he supported them so that they can restore the old thing, and they can get better condition of living, working, and they can get good health conditions. But soon Muhammad bin Tughlaq realized his fault, that it was a bad decision of shifting his capital, because Daulatabad situated far from the North Indian kingdoms, and there was a possibility of revolt by the Hindu Rajputs. Secondly, shifting of the capital also exposed Delhi and other states of the Sultanate to attack by Mughals. So he ordered the residents of Daulatabad to move back to Delhi. However, by the time the resident reached Delhi, half of the population had died, and Delhi had lost its wealth and all precious things. Next is taxation in Doab region. Another experiment in the Doab region between Ganga and Yamuna made by him was very wrong decision of his. He increased the land revenue from 10 to 30%. Apart from the land revenue, he has imposed several new taxes. So the farmers were overtaxed. They have to pay us a lot of taxes. At the same time, the rain failed and famine took place over there. But during the famine years, taxes were not relaxed. All the taxes were collected as regularly, and as a result of such harsh taxation, the rich farmers rebelled and the poor farmers were ruined totally. They were destroyed totally. They became so poor they were not having anything to eat. Next is the society between 1200 to 1500 CE. First is society. The society during the Sultanate period was divided into four major groups. First is aristocracy, means the royal family. Priests, those who perform religious ceremonies. Townspeople, the common people, those who live in the villages or the towns. And peasants, means farmers. Aristocracy, the aristocracy consists of Delhi's sultans, their nobles, their relatives, and all the people, those who belong to royal family. The sultan lived in a great palace. The sultan had many officials to assist him. The activities of the court were conducted with, with a very huge court and with all the show of things. Priests, the importance of Hindu priests in the society became less, as they were now not required to perform sacrifices and ceremonies. Their importance further reduced to great degree with the coming of Muslim rulers, and now didn't get the patronage they enjoyed earlier from the Hindu rulers. On the other hand, ulama or Muslim scholars gained importance as they were considered as the guides of the religion. They were given high post in the administration also. Townspeople. There were many ports and towns during the Sultanate period. Delhi was the largest city of the Sultanate. Rich merchants, artisans, traders, shopkeepers, clerks, and lower government officials lived in the cities. They led a comfortable and luxurious life. Artisans such as weavers, goldsmiths, sculptors, etc., formed small guilds. They have formed their own small groups, and lived in different parts of the town. New techniques of spinning and weaving were introduced, including the charkha. They have started using the charkha also. Peasants. Peasants bore the main burden of the excessive taxation that was implemented by the sultans. Ordinary farmers were poor as they had to give almost 50% of their produce in the form of taxes. Some of the kings encouraged the planting of specific crops. Tanks, wells, canals were made by the sultan for irrigation. Next is social structure. The society during Sultanate period comprised a mixture of Hindu, Jains and Muslims. The Hindus were orthodox. They were guided by the regulations made by Brahmins. Caste system was very rigid, and intercaste marriages and interdining between caste, especially in upper and lower caste, that were banned. They were prohibited. The position of women was not so good as they were not allowed to come out of their houses. Women from upper caste were put under pardha. The Muslim women wore burqa. The Turkish Sultan of Persia was accepted as a religious authority. There were some cases of intermarriage between two communities, especially among the royals, and these marriages were only on the basis to gain control over the territories which the princess belonged. Next is the Sufis. The word Sufi organized, that is originated from the word Safa, which means pure. Muslim saints who lived the life of purity, they were called Sufis. Sufi were great devotees of Allah, but they were unhappy at the moral decline of Islam after the establishment of the Islam empire. They were influenced by the philosophies of Bhakti saints. The Sufi voluntarily took participate in all the material benefits, and they stunned the and they have uh, now they don't want to be the patronage of the sultan and the officers of his administration. Sufi saints had many disciples that were called murids. They believed in the deep relationship between the pir and murid, similar like guru and shishya pratha. Sufis attracted a large number of Hindus, especially from the lower caste, to Islam, as it gave them the message of equality among all human beings. Some of the well-known Sufis were Muinuddin Chishti, Baba Farid, and Nizamuddin Aulia. These were the famous Sufi saints. The next one is the Bhakti movement. In the first chapter, we already read that extreme orthodoxy and increasing rigidity in the caste system in Hindu society brought a change in the beliefs of the Hindus, and it led to the development of Bhakti movement, Bhakti system, the Bhakti religion. There are some features of this movement that were unity of God. They believe in one God who is all powerful and all spread throughout the universe. The path of devotion. They believe in total devotion towards God without performing any kind of external rituals. Opposition of idolatry. They do not believe in idol worship. Emphasize on religious simplicity. They move away from the path of ritualism, orthodoxy, and superstition. Popular language used. Use of language or local language by the saints encouraged the spread of Bhakti movement among the people, because this language was understood by all the common people. The Bhakti movement had a profound effect on society. It gave a severe blow to the caste system. It also reduced idol worship and ritualism, which was famous in Hindus, and made the religion more liberal. Thus, as a result of the Bhakti movement, many social changes took place and regional literature, languages developed. Most importantly, the Bhakti movement developed a mutual feeling of tolerance between Hindus and the Muslims, which led to a better understanding of each other's culture and sense of harmony, peace between them. Next is language and literature. First one is development of regional and new languages. As the Bhakti movement spread all across India, Bhakti saints used regional languages to spread their message. Surdas and Tulsidas used the Brij and Avadhi form of Hindi to teach Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the first Sikh of Guru. He was also a popular Bhakti saint. He also used Hindi and Punjabi for his teachings. Ramanuj used Tamil. Dhanashwar, a Bhakti saint from Maharashtra, he used Marathi, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used Bangla. Other regional languages that were developed during this period were Uriya, Assami, Sindhi, Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam, and Gujarati. Another major development of this period was the growth of Hindvi language, which later became to be known as Urdu. Amir Khusro, he was a poet who wrote in Hindvi or Urdu from the first time. This language was a mixture of the existing form of Hindi, Persian and Turkish. As a result, these languages developed a strong regional languages, and a great deal of literature in prose and poetry was written in these languages. Sanskrit also remained a scholarly language and was limited to the scholars. Means scholars only use Sanskrit language. Next is literature in Urdu, Hindi and Persia. Chroniclers of courts like Al-Bruni, Ziauddin Virani and Minhazus Siraz brought the biographies and chronicles of the sultans in Persian language. Many poets and writers of that period wrote in various forms of Hindi such as Avadhi, Brij, Maithili. Malik Muhammad Jaisi wrote Padmavati in Hindi. Tulsidas wrote Ramcharitmanas in Avadhi, and Vidyapati wrote poems in Maithili. Mirabai also wrote her famous Bhakti poems dedicated to Lord Krishna in Hindi language. Literature in South Indian languages. South India also saw the rise of a number of writers who contributed to writing prose, poetry, etc. in South. Indian languages such as Tamil, Telugu, Kannada and Malayalam. Jayadev composed the famous Geet Govindam. Another Bhakti saint, Ramanuja, wrote his commentaries on Brahma Sutra in Tamil language. Among Varsha I, a king, was an accomplishment scholar and wrote Kaviraj Marga in Kannada and Prashnottara Ratnamalika in Sanskrit. Krishna Dev Arya, the famous ruler of Vijayanagar, wrote Amukta Malyada in Sanskrit language. Another poet, Srinatha, wrote a devotional poem composed in honor of Lord Shiva, Hara Visla in Telugu. Though there were constant political changes throughout the country, the development of literature, language, and the intermixing of culture continued to happen throughout this period.